I mean, it's unparalleled. I mean, so even in being married, we agreed to raise our kids in church and teach them about the Bible and things of that nature. And so they've grown up, like my son will tell me sometimes when I'm getting annoyed and he's like, you need to be patient. You're not exercising the fruits of the spirit. He's 7.
Wow.
I'm like, you're right. I'm not because you're driving me nuts, but it's okay. But
Wow. Wow.
even this sign behind me, this love is patient, love is kind. He knows that
Mm,
verse by
mm.
heart. And when I went to get decorations for the apartment, he picked this out and he said, we have to buy this. And so it's really shaped um, how I parent, but especially through the divorce, I would say that while they had seen stuff they shouldn't have, and see me, even being treated a certain way, or even me, lose my anger because I wasn't perfect. But even in the divorce, I think from a co parenting aspect, it has shaped the way I co parent because it really was not good for. And he's apologized now. He's apologized to the kids, but he was not very nice. And it was really like times where I would be just praying for a miracle, like, please, Lord, just something has got to let up with this. But I really was intentional that even when I was not being treated respectfully, or, you know, the birthday parties, you
Yeah.
know, he
Yeah.
didn't want to do together, things like that, which we do them now together, but he just wasn't there yet. I would just really be intentional about treating their dad with respect in front of them and
Yeah.
still having boundaries. And so that affected really more so in the last season of their life, them being able to see someone like you can teach your kids about God all day long. But what do you do when
What do you
someone is
do? Yeah.
cussing you out at
Yeah.
work? Or
Yeah.
what do you do when someone cuts you off in traffic? Like, what do you do when you're at a family event and someone is like being so disrespectful to you, or even if you're still married and you guys are arguing, like, do you disagree in a respectful way, or do you yell at each other and in each other's face? I mean, it's your kids will learn more from you when you're not being treated the way you should be. And so in this season of, divorce and like them moving out of their home, and their dad has them, every other weekend, like Thursday to Monday. I really think that they could have so many more issues and attachment issues than this if
Mm.
I wouldn't have known God.
Wow.
Because God has really kept them. And now, we do their sports together and all those things, their birthdays together. And, it's much better. But yeah, to answer that, I really think that, oh my gosh, I think the grace of walking in love and actually showing it in action, I
Mm.
think that they could have been much more traumatized had that not
Yeah.
been already established.
Wow. Wow. So good. Wow. It's, you said something right now that just, it really took it home for me. It's not about teaching them about the Bible and everything. They need to see you act it out,
Right.
because kids learn a lot from what they see,
Right.
not much of what they hear, and
Mm-hmm.
how we behave around them, and it's amazing how you actually, manage the whole situation. I believe it's not by your own strength. It's just the grace of
No,
God
definitely not.
that enabled, definitely not.
Definitely not.
It's just the grace of God that enabled you to do all of that. And it's really something that, I believe that someone is going to learn from. So I want to know, like, what role has your faith community played in, helping you through the divorce, being a single mom, and how can other single moms, find that same support?
I think when you're in a situation to where you there is so much like trauma back to back to back, because not only did I lose my marriage, I lost
Yeah.
my family being a family unit. I am now don't have income. I'm now don't have a vehicle. I'm now don't have, when your whole life changes like that and you have that many traumas, and then you're also, not being treated very well, and you're put in situations that are not really safe because you are not agreeing with the other parent. For a while, to be honest with you, I think that God's grace carried me and I just was
Yeah.
surviving.
Wow.
Um, and I got to a point to where when I finally, got my own apartment and I kind of had a moment to like breathe, just not from a financial point, because I didn't have a financial break at that point, but from an emotional state, that's really when I struggled because I had just had to walk through so much without family here and without, I had wonderful friends in church, but like every day was such a battle to where I didn't realize how much stress I had been carrying.
Wow.
And so I think the key to like being a single parent and ever healing is number one, you need to take accountability, which
Mm.
is something from the beginning that I did intentionally. I read books from the beginning on forgiveness because it was so easy to be bitter and resentful. And I had every right to be bitter and resentful. I had every reason to be, angry and mad and not nice to their dad. I had every valid reason in the book. But I said, you know what? If the devil's going to take my family and the enemy and my family's going to be gone and I'm going to lose my marriage, and then it is what it is. But I'm going to make a choice to still be forgiving, because what I'm not going to do is be bitter and resentful, and I'm not going to do what the other person's doing. And
Wow.
so I read this book called Bait of Satan. And I think every person, it should be a law. We all have to read it, but
Wow.
it talks about not being an offense
Mm.
and not letting anything offend you, even getting cut off in traffic. How offense is the doorway for the enemy to have a
Yeah.
foothold in your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And so, to answer the question of how has, my relationship with God shaped me, and as far as being a single parent, we can go to church and do all the things, but we have to take accountability for our situation. And you have to choose to walk that out. Like when your kid wants to have a birthday party as together with each parent there and the other parent just will not do it. How do you handle that?
Mm.
Like in front of your children. Like I'm not saying yes, you're going to be hurt. You're going to be angry. Oh, I was so angry. I call my mom cussing up a storm, but then I took that to God and obviously didn't. My kids never saw that. So you have to be very careful that and it might take you a week after a certain thing's done, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Take that accountability and ask yourself, because the real thing about divorce is that yes, it takes two people to get married. It takes one person to get divorced most of the time, because there's always one person who wants to save it and one person who
Yeah.
does it. But
Yeah.
at some point in your marriage, either you did not marry the right person because you didn't wait on God. Nobody wants to talk about that.
Yeah.
Or there's a certain type of behavior that you allowed in your
Mm.
relationship.
Mm.
And I'm not talking about being physically abused or anything like that. But even in that, even in abuse, okay, why did you accept someone treating you that way in the first place? You can
Wow.
say, well, it's because of my childhood, because my dad left and I didn't have a close relationship with him. Okay, that was out of your control, but that's a symptom of the root of the problem. What is the actual root? The root is that you did not know your worth. Because if you know your worth, you do not allow somebody to treat you any type of way.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe you allowed someone to do something to keep the peace.
Mm.
Okay, but why? Like, see, we teach people how to treat us. So at some point of every situation, there is a level of self accountability that we all have to take. I'm not justifying what the other person did to you,
Yeah.
but we have to have that, I call it getting out of that victim mentality. It is so easy in divorce and in single parenthood, and you see it all the time, to stay in a victim mentality. Poor me, I'm a single mom. Poor me, I'm a single dad. I'm divorced. I'm 30. I have to start all over now. That is exactly where the enemy wants you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have got to choose to say, this happened in my marriage, that happened in my marriage. What was my part in it? These are things I could have done better in the marriage. Maybe you didn't work on your abandonment before you got married, and that bled into
Mm.
your marriage, which caused you to
Mm.
marry the person you married in the first place.
Mm.
Like, there's at some point where you had accountability in that.
Yeah. You have to have
You
accountability.
know, oh, well, my marriage was just really toxic. It was probably toxic when y'all dated. Why did you accept that? What
Wow.
did you not heal from? And so,
Mhm.
accountability, not playing the victim mentality, and then just choosing to actually work on yourself, because you
Yeah.
cannot control the other person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had to get to, my mentor when things were really bad. He said, if you don't focus on yourself, you're going to go crazy. You're going to have to focus on yourself healing, because you cannot control what the other person does.
Wow.
And so, doing that, and, allowing God to use the things I went through and the pain to help other people has been a huge part of healing, and how I co-parent, and how
Wow.
I'm a single mom and able to be okay. And you have to choose to forgive. You
Yeah.
have got to
That's
see,
the for some
that
people
is the
that's
first
the
step.
hardest. Yeah.
Like, yeah, without forgiveness, honestly, nothing is going to work for you,
Yeah,
because the
that's the
Bible says,
hardest part for people. For so many people, that's like forgiveness is the hardest part, but they don't
right,
know that once you step into that place of forgiveness, it makes every other thing, easy. It makes you see people from the lens of God. You're not
right,
seeing them from the human lens.
the
Because
person,
yeah, you're
right,
not seeing them from the, you're not seeing them from the human lens, which would, criticize, which will say, oh, it's your fault, you did this, you did that. When you see them from the lens of God, it would help, release forgiveness. I heard this thing somewhere that when you actually forgive people, it's not for them, it's for you. you actually
right.
you're actually setting yourself free when you choose to forgive people, you know,
And you're shutting that spiritual door for the enemy to
for the
continue
enemy.
to bring
Yeah,
things into
yeah,
your life.
yeah, yeah.
Because we don't realize how serious it is to be in bitterness and resentfulness, and how it is a literal door for the enemy to walk
Mm,
into your life and cause diseases,
wow,
hardships,
wow.
and even people who have not forgiven their parents
Mm,
for the
mm,
abuse and all the things,
mm.
and then they go and get married, that unforgiveness carries on to their spouse.
Wow.
So it's a very serious first step of,
What's that? Yeah,
it's a spirit, everything is a spiritual battle.
yeah.
And when you see people as whatever spirit they're struggling with instead of the person,
Mm,
and you don't always feel like forgiving. You
yeah, that's
don't.
right. That's
Like,
right.
and you probably have valid reasons
Yeah.
to not forgive, to be
Mm,
honest. Like, you have
mm,
rightful reasons to be bitter.
yeah,
But um that, like you said, that being justified in your bitterness, how is that working for you?
yeah, that's right.
It's
That's
not helping you.
It's not. It's not.
Just
Wow.
because we're justified in something doesn't make it okay to live in every day.
Yeah, that's right. Wow. Wow, this is
So,
this is this is so good. But I just want to ask you maybe two more questions because we've been here for quite some time, and I
okay,
know it's
sorry.
pretty late. What's the time over there right now?
It's not that late. It's
It's not
9:30.
it's not
Yeah.
9:30. So I want to ask this question. What advice would you give to single moms, who feel like, they are carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders? And how can they, lean into God's strength, more, for his faithfulness? Because he showed up for you and he can show up for them.
Realistically, you're just going to have days where you feel like that. I don't want to over spiritualize the journey and make it seem
Yeah.
like every day doesn't feel like a lot. There are some days where it's going to feel like you are carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. But practically, what you can do to help prevent, or what you can do to help create less days that you feel like that, is you need to stay in community. And I think a lot of times single parents are like, oh, I'm going to join the single parent group. And they're involved in all these single parent groups, which is great. You should have some level of someone that can understand your situation.
Yeah.
But you need to also be intentional about not being in those kind of groups. And I say that because I think that what we focus on expands. So if I'm only talking to people that are single parents, and we're only talking about how hard it is and how stressful it is and
Wow.
how tiring it is, what am I focusing on? So you need to be very careful about even the single parenting groups that you're in, because one thing that I was intentional about when I found out I was going to be a single mom was, I'm not going to, everyone, oh my gosh, the advice, the speaking things over me. Like, oh my gosh, it's so hard. It's going to be hard to date. You're never going to find anybody. It's going to be stressful. It's going to be tiring. I told God, I said, I refuse to be that single mom that everything is horrible, everything is stressful. I can never go on dates. I can never be remarried. And, you know, if you're a believer, I have biblical reasons that I can get remarried.
Yeah.
And it's fine. So you need to talk with God about that, but I'm not saying everybody should, but you just need to be careful, number one, who you're listening to. And if you are like my best friend, she's a single mom, and you know, we have the best time. We laugh, we joke, you know, we don't like talk negative all the time, but
Yeah.
be careful, be in community, but be mindful of who you are in community with.
Yeah.
And be in groups that maybe you are the only single mom in the Bible study group. Or maybe you are the only person who's been divorced. Like, don't be afraid to be in, for one of my Bible study groups. I think, well, everyone I've invited on the call is a single mom, but, and some aren't, but most of them don't even have children yet. And they're my age, but they haven't even been married yet. But just don't be afraid to, you know, if what you are wanting is remarriage and you are clear to do that, if you're a Christian, if you're not, then, you know, that's your own opinion, whatever you want to do. But
Yeah.
don't, like, if you're wanting something, you need to be around those kind of groups, you know? So, community, be careful though who you're in community with. For me personally, and this is not for everybody, but for
Yeah.
me, the only way I get through being a single mom and going through everything I go through is I have a relationship with God. There are other people who believe in other things, and I respect whatever you believe in. For me personally, it's God. And there's no way I could go through, like, God has done too many crazy miracles for me to discount him. What other God is going to send you $5,000? Like, maybe you do have a God that does that, but I only know of one God that's done that for me. So, number two, I stay in my faith. Number three, I have always worked out. I've been in fitness the whole time I was married. I've stayed active. I go to the gym. I lift weights. I take care of my body. And not in a way that's like, oh, to find a man. It has nothing to do with that. I do it for myself.
Yourself. Yeah.
A stress reliever. It will help you in the next 30 years. So community with certain people. Don't get in the negative, self-pity ones and single parent sucks, blah, blah, blah. Positive, engaging community that has people that are where you want to be at in the future, and it's not all single parenting groups.
Wow.
Bible study calls. There are Zoom. You can get on Zoom Bible studies. You can just mute your camera. Like, stay in community. For me, I stay on Bible study calls, And then I said working out, taking care of yourself physically. I don't care if you walk 25 minutes a day,
Yeah.
walk with your children, whatever.
Mm.
Um, and I forget the other one I had said. Um,
You mentioned taking care of yourself, staying in community, the right people around you, you know.
oh, my faith, staying in community, taking care of yourself physically. And I know that, like, so their dad, he does have them, Thursday to Monday, like every other weekend. I know there are single parents who their dad is literally not involved or their mom
Mhm.
is
Mm.
literally not involved. And so for those people, I encourage you to still get on the calls with your kids. Still find a gym that's $10 a month that has childcare. Like my gym is $10 a month that has childcare. Take the kids to the childcare so you can go work out. Find I know for me it gets challenging because I don't have family here, but find some kind of community. If you're in a Bible study group or if you're in a friend group that people you
Wow.
trust to watch your kids,
Wow.
and I'm not saying send your kids with just anybody, but
Mhm.
like once a week or twice a month. Hey, can you watch my kids for a couple of hours? I'll trade you and I'll clean your house next month. Or I'll trade you and
Wow.
I'll watch your kids.
Wow.
You want to go and just go and be with yourself, but those are the main things because lots of times when we feel, for me at least, because I was on antidepressants for an entire year when I was married after I had my daughter. Thankfully, God healed me from that, and I've never been on them again. But lots of times, whenever you start to feel overwhelmed as a single parent, even with the money, right? You're paying all these bills, and it's so easy to, like, in your head, just start to think, okay, but what about like when I want to retire? What
Yeah.
about next year? I don't even have a savings. If
Yeah.
you're just building yourself back up financially, I encourage you to not focus so much on what the world says
Yeah.
about all the things
Yeah.
because you start to get discouraged. You'll start to get,
Mm.
overwhelmed. Like the world will tell you you need to make 60 grand a year to be okay and this and that. And for me, it's been hard because I went to school and I did all the things. But I went to school to be a dental assistant and I didn't renew my license because I was married and I stayed at home with my kids. Well, I never thought I was going to be a single mom. I thought the plan was when my kids started school and I was married, I was going to go back to school because I was going to be married. So for me, it's been challenging because, and I can relate to if you're a single parent, you don't have family where you live, you want to go back to school, but either you cannot afford to, you literally like can't do a trade school because you can't not work and you can't go to clinicals because you don't have someone to watch your kids. You can't go to night school because you have your kids. It can get very frustrating.
Yeah.
I encourage you to just, for me, I just see God on like, okay, this is what I can control today. And I know there's going to come a time where you're going to allow me the opportunity to be able to do something. Look up
Yeah.
online courses. There might be resources that can help you even pay for part of
Mm.
school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you know, even whatever you're good at, find something you're good at. Right now, me and another single mom, we're working on starting a podcast.
Wow.
And the reality is, to be honest with
I can't wait to be a fan of that podcast because I'm sure it's gonna be filled with so
yeah,
much,
it's going to be for all people, not just single
Wow.
parents. But the
Wow.
reality is, sometimes it just sucks. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to,
Yeah.
sometimes it sucks. I think if I would have been working when I was married, for me, wow, that would have been probably 10 times easier, just to be honest with you.
I
The
believe
not,
that I'm a firm believer that, once you have it in your heart and you pray about it, if it's God's will for your life, definitely He's going to bring it to pass.
oh, yeah,
There's
100%.
nothing, yeah, there's nothing that's too difficult for God to do. So if
Yeah.
you and your friend, if you guys are planning to start a podcast, I would say Start it.
We are. Yes, we totally are.
Because
We're
yeah,
recording tomorrow.
yeah, because definitely people are going to be blessed by the stories that are going to come there, the people that are going to, come there to, share their story and all of that. So I want to ask this maybe two more questions before we go. I want to ask you, like, what advice would you give to other mothers who are struggling to trust God, God's faithfulness in their own situation? They're like, I'm hearing what Maria is saying right now. I've prayed and I didn't get anything just like she did. What advice would you give them, to trust in God's faithfulness in their own situation?
Depending on the level you're at, like if you're a brand new believer, I had already been walking with God many years. I think that's why it was easier for me to have faith for bigger things. Start with something small. Um, and surround yourself with stories of people who have had crazy miracles happen to them. Because that goes back to what we focus on expands.
Mhm.
So if you don't have the faith, surround yourself with somebody who has what you want.
Come on.
Like literally look up YouTube stories. God doing crazy miracles. Watch them over and over because what you end up doing is rewiring the neural pathways to your brain.
Mm.
Because not trusting God or not having faith, to be honest with you, there's either something that happened in your life that you have not forgiven, which has opened a doorway to a spirit of rejection where you're rejecting who you are in Christ and who God is to you.
So good. So good. I love this.
Or you just don't know him as a father. You only know him as a man upstairs.
Mm.
So
Mm.
surround yourself with people who can believe for you. You may not have the faith, but go to a church or go online on threads, Instagram threads, and put, hey, I don't have the faith, but this is what I need God to do. Watch the comments of people who believe for you. And until you can get the faith is like a muscle. It's like working out. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. But until your muscle is strong enough to do it on your own, steal other people's strengths. Just
Wow.
borrow it for a little while. Just
Wow.
borrow it. Just
Wow.
borrow it. Have them intercede for you. I don't care, whatever.
Yeah.
Just borrow it until you can get there. And as you when you see God move in the little things, you'll start to oh, well, if he did this,
You can do
he can
that.
do that. Oh,
Oh
if he did
my
that,
God.
he can do
Yes.
this. And
Yes.
honestly, that's where you become the enemy will start to really test you because he
Mm.
won't want to see you level up.
Mm.
So don't think because you have faith for something and it doesn't happen, or you have faith, you get it, and then things get harder, that's God. No, that's just the enemy trying to get you to, because see, you have to establish that deep root. And so what the enemy does is he tries to basically stop us before that root gets too deep. Because once the root gets too deep, he knows, oh, I can't touch her anymore.
I can't touch her anymore.
So just borrow from people until you can get there.
Wow. You saying this reminds me of the story of the paralytic man with the three friends when Jesus was preaching.
Yes,
And then
exactly.
the friends, like they went through the roof, the guy didn't have the faith to get
Right.
healed, but his friends,
His
they
friend.
lended him their faith, and they brought him
Yep.
from the ceiling to drop him there for him to receive his healing. So everyone that is listening, if you don't have the faith to carry what you
Borrow.
believe in, borrow your faith. Surround
Borrow.
yourself with people who are like who can believe God for you, who can
And
have
there are
faith
certain
in him.
seasons where you have to be very intentional about what you are borrowing. So if
Yeah.
you have a friend who's a single mom and every day you talk to her, she's like, oh, my life is just miserable. My life is just this. Don't talk to her. Be like, hey, I'm praying for you. I care
Yes.
about you. But
Yeah.
I got to get off the phone with you because I'm in a season where I have to borrow
Yeah.
faith from people
Faith.
and you cannot afford
Afford. Yeah. Come
you
on.
cannot afford to be with people who thought like you used to think.
Mm.
You
Come
can't
on.
afford it. So, like,
Yeah.
cut it off.
Yeah. That's
Don't
right.
watch the news. Do not watch the news.
Come on.
Don't watch social media where we're griping about our baby daddies all the time. Like, whatever. Just anything that is not what you're trying to borrow,
Mm.
because you're borrowing something. We're all borrowing things we watch, things we hear. So be careful what you're borrowing from people.
Come on. Wow. I'm trying to process this like for a second. Wow, wow. Well, so finally, I want to ask this question. If a single mom is listening right now and they feel like they will never recover from
Right.
from whatever they've been through, you know, I want to know, like, what hope can you share with her about God's faithfulness in rebuilding her life?
I mean, I feel like honestly though that's a trick question because I think whenever we get to the point where we feel like our situation is hopeless and we can never recover, we're focusing too much on our situation. So I understand the feeling.
Yeah,
I truly.
yeah.
There were days when I was driving back to Fort Worth with my two kids. I was like in my head, this is just I don't understand how this is going to work and I have all these things stacked against me. And when I got back, things got worse and worse and worse. It was like coming back, all hell broke loose. And it was, I mean, every day it was, I haven't shared a lot to protect just the kid's dad, but it was horrible. And I mean, I would have a day where I would call my mom and I'd say, this just, I don't understand, like, how I'm ever going to get a place to live or get my own vehicle or, like, get a job. Or when I get a job, now I don't have a car. And yeah, I'm borrowing a car, but how am I ever going to pay for my own car? And now I don't have credit. And it would feel like very much like, dang, everything is stacked against me.
Wow.
But honestly, I just think that if you feel the times where you feel like this is just too much, like this is never going to be repaired. And I think this is a lot of people in domestic, like physical abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Often that's why they go back because the trauma makes you believe that because of those neural pathways that like it can never get better. You can never get out of it, especially if someone is very abusive, very controlling, and every time you make progress, they do intentional things to get you, like, cut off your money and
Mm.
just it can feel very hopeless. But I would say that if you're feeling like there's just no way I'll recover and there's no way this and there's no way that, and this is for people that are believers in Christ, right?
Yeah, yeah,
This is not for people because we're talking about God's
yeah,
faithfulness.
yeah.
If you really feel that your situation is hopeless and that you can never recover from this or you can never recover from that, are you really a believer? And maybe that's a question you need to ask yourself is, am I really surrendered to Christ? Because if you really walk with the Holy Spirit,
Mm.
even if you're a new believer, you can go in the scriptures and see how he's done it again and again. But if you've been walking, you say you're a believer and you've been walking with God a long time. Have you really been walking with God if you believe that your situation is bigger than God?
Ah,
So when you feel those days where you're like, I do not understand how I'm ever going to recover from this, or even there's so much stacked against me that I don't even know where to start. Because, like I told you, until I moved into my own place, I didn't realize how much, like, trauma I had just been stacking and stacking against me. And I would have people ask me, like, how are you doing this? My friend, my best friend, she'd be like, how are you co-parenting? How are you being forgiving? And I would have people during this process, family even, tell me, oh, people that knew him, close people to him, tell me, oh, he wants to act like that way. You should just do this. You should just give him a taste of his own medicine. And I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. Why? He deserves it. Blah blah blah. Yeah, he does. But I can't answer for somebody else. I can only answer for what I do. And what I don't want to do is have to reap what I sow. So what I'm going to sow is good seed. So I think that when you get in a place where you have so much trauma over and over and over again, and it feels hopeless and you feel like this is just too much, God can't repair this, to be honest with you, he probably won't. Because you are already speaking that he can't.
Come on. Yes. Yes.
That's why I say be careful who you surround yourself with and
Yeah.
what you borrow from people.
Yeah.
Because if it was up to society, I would be a hopeless single mom with 2 kids who's never going to make it out and never going to do anything and no one's ever going to want me. So that's all garbage. So I just think that that's a trick question because if you're really focused on God's faithfulness, why would you focus on that it's past the point of no return? So you're going to have to not follow your feelings.
Yeah.
I don't care if you write on an expo marker on the bathroom mirrors that I feel like this is impossible for God to do, but his word says, and you write the scriptures and you say, and focus in 1 month, focus in 1 week. I feel like this today, but in 1 week,
wow,
I'm going to see God's faithfulness. I'm going to see God fill me up with the Holy Spirit. But if you haven't forgiven, even if you're doing all these things, honestly, you're never going to get better. So the first step is you have to forgive. Bait of Satan. It's a book. Bait of Satan. You have to read that book.
That was from John Bevere, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And once you forgive, then you'll be able to see. But yeah, I mean, you can't, to be honest with you, you just have to be like a horse with blinders. Like, don't focus on all the outside stuff because it will get to the point where you're like, it's too much.
So what there's something you said that is like very, very true. If you're a believer, if you believe in God, then you shouldn't think that whatever thing that you're going through or whatever you've been through, that God can show up for you, because he's bigger than any problem. He's bigger than any situation, any challenge that we've ever or will ever face. He's bigger than it all. All we just have to do is, as believers, is just to believe that he is able to do far exceedingly and abundantly above all that we can ever ask or think. And it's above all that we've ever been through, above all that we're even ever going to go through. So that is like something, it's something that someone needs to like just go back and think. If you're believing that, oh, the situation that I'm in, it's irredeemable, do you really trust God? Are you really a believer? Do you really believe in God? Because if you do, then he is able to bring you out of it. Your story.
Yeah, and you might still have times where you feel like, I'm not saying you won't ever feel hopeless or feel frustrated, but it's like when you feel that way, do you live in that feeling
What's
or
your
do
response?
you go and fight it with scripture and like stories of, and borrow that? It's kind of like, yes, you will still have those feelings, but like my spiritual dad has taught me, you have to learn to rebuke those feelings. Like, what are you going to choose to focus on?
Yeah. What's your response? Like when
so I don't want people to think I just walk around like I never worry or anything like that.
Yeah. Amazing. Oh, I'm so filled. Seriously, I'm so so encouraged, and And I know that people are going to be blessed by it, even if it's one, two, five, 10, 100 people, that watch this, and like it that what they just learned one thing, they were blessed
Yeah.
in one thing or the other from
And
everything
I'm gonna give you my Instagram. I want them to be able, like, if they can find me on Instagram,
yeah.
and
I'm going to
also
tag you.
they
I'm
can
actually
always
going to tag you
message
on the post.
me, and
Yeah.
I'll talk to you and I'll pray with you. Like,
Yeah.
I know there's people who like charge money for that and all this. Like, I will
Yeah.
help you if you reach out. I
Yeah.
have other moms who I'm like, I help and I share, what
Mhm.
I've
Yeah.
done to be
Yeah.
able to heal.
Yeah,
But
definitely. Definitely.
please reach out.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna tag you in the post and then everything. Put your IG there. Are you on Facebook? Are you on
Hey,
Facebook?
I'm on Facebook and anybody can reach out to me. I will really help you, like, as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's actually what it's all about, and that's the reason why I even started. This. That's the reason why I post videos online because I just want to, let people know that they can actually be whatever they want to be. All they need to do is just to
Mhm.
have faith and believe in God. That's just it. That's all you need to do.
Yeah.
And your story is a testament of that. Your faith in God, your faith in God's faithfulness, it has brought you, right from when like everything happened up to this moment. Look at you. Look at you now.
It's all
And
God, really.
it's all God. And I believe that this is just the beginning because where God is taking you, He's going to put you in places where people are going to like, Maria, how did you get here? And you will tell them that it's God's faithfulness. It's
Really.
by
Yeah.
God's grace. I just believe that for you. And I'm super
Thank
excited.
you.
I'm
I
sure we're gonna
respect.
be, I'm sure we're gonna be friends for a very long time. And
Yes,
yeah,
of
yeah,
course.
yeah,
Listen, what
definitely.
I told my Bible study group is once I'm a friend with you, I'm very loyal. You're stuck with me for life. You can't get rid
Yeah.
of me. I'm always going to be praying for you. So,
Yeah, sure, sure, sure. Thank you so much for, making out the time. I know it's night there. And
no,
I
thank
just
you for
yeah,
having me.
I just really want to say thank you for sharing. And let's just wait and see, what this is gonna,
Yeah, we'll have to recap in a year and see what
yeah,
else
yeah,
happens.
yeah, we're gonna see. We're gonna see. We're gonna see. I can't wait to like hear like before and after, let's say in the next 3, 4, 5, 6
Right?
months, we have you back and then we see, oh, what has got done, and then we share the testimonies, just to encourage someone and all of
Yes, I hope it. I hope
that.
it reaches, even if it's one person.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
I really want people to be. I just want people to remember that, like, God is like the miracles he did back then, he can still do today. Like, he hasn't stopped being who he is. It's just you got to have that intimacy with him. I just want people to realize, like, even an iced coffee. There's times where, even when I was married, I wouldn't have the money for an iced coffee, and God'd be like, go get one, and the person in front of me would pay for it.
So good. I just
So,
feel like screaming. But yeah, thank you so much,
hey,
Maria.
I'm so excited. I cannot wait. I've had so many people ask me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so,
Yay,
so
thank
much.
you.
Have an
All right.
amazing night, and I'll talk
Okay.
to you soon, okay?
Okay. All
All
right,
right.
bye.
All right. Bye bye.